the cowboy. So when Adam is talking to the cowboy asks him a strange question. He says, "Do you agree that a man's attitude determines to a large extent how his life will be?" It's a very strange statement. And sometimes I overdo my analysis a little bit. This might be one of those moments, but I want to point out that Aristotle, ancient Greek philosopher who was writing about ancient Greek plays, ancient Greek tragedies, um, talked about how what makes tragedy tragedy is the fatal flaw in the character of the fatal flaw in the character of the main character, sort of the attitude of the main character, causes the plot. And I talked about this with The Shining, the difference between tragedy and doom, right? Doom is what happens when, like, a dragon breathes fire on you, or a meteor hits you and you die, or even you catch a disease and you die. But that's doom. But tragedy, there's something in you, in your character, that causes it to be a tragedy. The tragedy is, it's not your fault exactly, but it's caused by something in here, right? Jack already is angry and wants to murder his whole family, right? It's not a random, the ghosts don't brainwash a nice guy into killing his family. Jack already wants to kill his family. And it's his attitude towards his family determines to a large extent how his life will be. The tragedy of the Shining is because of the attitude, the character, a character flaw in Jack. So it's interesting that in the guy who's making movies for a living, Adam Kesher, goes up to meet this guy representing the mafia or something, and he tells him this thing that's like from Aristotle, right? That he's telling Adam that, like, maybe Adam is a character in a tragedy. Um, and that his attitude is determining how his life will be, right? He's not because if it was just a random thing that happened and it wasn't his fault, that wouldn't be a story. That would just, right? That's not, the movies are not supposed to be about just like rando shit happening to people. It's supposed to be like a character flaw, and the guy's suggesting Adam has this character flaw. But it's interesting to tell a human being in real life that they have a flaw that's causing their life to be a tragedy, when that's something we use not to describe real life, but stories. So it's almost like this guy thinks Adam Kesher is like in a story, which is interesting since Adam is a guy who makes stories for a living. Also, he is in a story. He is in David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. So I may be overdoing it with that kind of analysis, but the cowboy is one of these figures. It's a little bit like the guy from Lost Highway, the mystery man from Lost Highway, because he just seems to know a lot. He's one of these characters that seems, the movies are very confusing, but he seems like he knows what's going on, even though he's not going to tell us. And he gives them the sort of creepy thing: you will see me one more time if you do good. You will see me two more times if you do bad," which is like a very scary thing to say. Interestingly, Adam sees him one more time, but no, the point is we see him two more times, which is very disturbing. Adam doesn't see him again, but we see him two more times. And he was told, "You would see me two more times if you do bad." So did we, the audience, do something bad? I don't know. Find out. We did. Um, okay. Where am I going next? Um, Yeah. So then we go back to Betty, and Rita. By the way, one of the things I love about the way David Lynch designs this movie, and it's something kind of unrealistic, but it's fun. It's that there's a color scheme for Betty and Rita. That Betty wears these pink outfits with sparkles in them, and that Rita wears red and black. Not 100% of the time, but most of the time. But it goes so far is when we cut back to them, they're doing a scene. And it's like really bad acting, and then you realize, oh, they're rehearsing her script, and they're doing this terrible, terrible job acting. But Rita has a black and red bathrobe, and Betty has a pink bathrobe. So like their color schemes are even in their bathrobe styles, which is it's a cute detail. Um, but it starts out again very disorienting. "Who are you? Get out of here!" And you're like, "Oh no, what's going on in this movie? Did they have a fight?" And then you realize, oh, they don't really mean anything they're saying. They are rehearsing a script. But again, the movie keeps you disoriented, keeps you confused. And then Betty has to go off to her audition for this terrible script that we just heard them do a terrible, terrible job on. Please notice that the outfit that Betty wears to Paramount Studios looks a hell of a lot like Kim Novak's outfit from Vertigo. There's almost a direct connection, and it doesn't hurt that both Kim Novak and Naomi Watts are blondes. But there's a gray pantsuit that she wears to the audition. Notice, by the way, that she shows up at Paramount Studios, which is the same studio that we saw in Sunset Boulevard. Notice also, if you look in the background, I'm sure you didn't notice this, but if you were to look in the background, she arrives and she's so fresh-faced and she's so happy to be there, gets out of a cab for a big audition. You see the Paramount Studios archway, same one that Norma Desmond drove through. If you look in that archway, you will see, you gotta look close, you will see Norma Desmond's car is parked out there. It is a direct Sunset Boulevard connection. Now, a lot of people notice that it looks like the car from Sunset Boulevard, but it's not. It is the car from Sunset Boulevard. David Lynch, it's a prop that they owned, and David Lynch got it for the movie, and he stuck it in the thing. And it is the car from Sunset Boulevard is sitting there. So it's like a direct connection that she's going to audition and in a movie. She's going to audition for a movie, and there's the gate that Norma Desmond drove through, and indeed there is Norma Desmond's car. It's a connection for us, the viewers, right? Naomi Watts doesn't notice that, but we might notice it if we're paying attention, and we should already be primed for this because we saw the Sunset Boulevard sign. She's not going to meet Norma Desmond because it's not a Marvel movie, but it is not like an interconnected cinema universe. But the ideas in Sunset Boulevard about the way Hollywood treats actresses and the value of illusions and fantasies are the same ideas that this movie is playing with. Now, everything about the audition that she goes to suggests that it's going to be fucking terrible. For starters, Betty seems like she's very sweet and we like her a lot, but she doesn't seem very talented. Oh, by the way, she even does the "thank you, darling," which is a very like Norma Desmond kind of thing to say when she's doing the rehearsal. But she goes in for the audition. I think she's doing more Betty Davis, but the point is that she goes to the audition. It seems like it's going to be awful. There's a pile of people there, and there's nothing in the movie to suggest she's going to do a good job. And then when you meet her co-star, he's this kind of sleazy looking dude. He's like super tan. I think he's supposed to remind you of like a kind of shitty TV actor like Eric Roberts, who's Julia Roberts' brother, or not George Harrison. Can't remember that. George Hamilton, or Eric Roberts. He seems sleazy. And you feel like we like Betty, and she's so sweet, and I feel like she's in a lot of trouble here. And the director in this room seems very weak. He has to be prompted. He doesn't even say action on his own. Someone has to tell him to say action. So it's a very weak director and a sleazy actor. And we've heard the script already, and it's fucking terrible. And there's nothing about Naomi Watts that suggests this is going to go well. And then we get this sort of dopey device. Don't play it for real until it gets real. Is that helpful? It seems like it's going to go very badly. And in a total shock, and it's one of the most amazing scenes I've ever seen in any movie. Because some truly incredible things happen in this moment. David Lynch's camera work is a lot of why it's an amazing scene. She goes in to do this scene, which we've already heard. It's this kind of breakup, my father will catch us and he'll put us in jail, and it's a silly soap opera thing. But David Lynch, the room is small and is filled full of people watching her do this audition. There's like 12 people in the room. What David Lynch does is he puts the camera close to the dude and Naomi Watts in their audition. And then he doesn't move it. There's no music. He cuts the music's gone. And then he puts the camera up to their faces while they do their audition scene. Normally in a scene like this, you'd expect to see how they're doing and then cut to the audience watching them, correct? Because maybe someone's taking notes, and maybe someone's like, oh, wow, she's doing really good, or someone's like, oh, this isn't quite working. David Lynch doesn't do that. He keeps the camera just on the dude and Naomi Watts alone, and he lets the scene play out with no music and no reaction from the packed room. The result is that you kind of forget the room is packed for that stretch. And Naomi Watts does an extraordinary job. He seems like he gets a little sleazy and sort of puts his hand close to her ass, and she guides it more. She leans into the sexuality of the scene. Nothing about Betty has prepared us that she would be able to do that or be interested in that or not be. I would expect her to be like, oh, this is inappropriate. How dare you, But she really leans into the sultry sexiness of it. And we saw her rehearsing, and she was not great in that rehearsal, and the script was terrible. And now she turns that crappy script into solid gold, which is what a good actor can do. A good actor gets a bad script, they can do amazing things with it. And that's what Betty, who did not appear to have a lot of talent, is able to do in that scene. And David Lynch lets you feel it By putting you in the scene, he doesn't move the camera, so he makes it feel like you're watching the movie they're gonna make rather than an audition, because he doesn't show you the people she's auditioning for. He just leaves the camera up here like it's a real movie. And the no music and the no reaction shot means that she has to carry the whole scene on just her acting, and holy shit, is she incredible and sultry and sexy. And the biggest irony of the scene is Naomi Watts in Mulholland Drive, for up until now, seems like a dopey fake character. She doesn't really seem like a real person. She's like Nancy Drew. When she is pretending to be someone in the audition is the first time in the whole movie where she seems like a real human being. It's crazy. When she's faking being a person, it's the moment she seems the most real. Remember what the director said? Don't play it for real until it gets real. Bizarre. See you in the next video.